Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson, a World Alternative Media here, and of course I'm joined by John Sneisen, author and economic analyst here at WAM. And so we recently came across this article, John did anyway, and it was called "Here's Why $100,000 an ounce silver is a conservative estimate," and it was by a man named Bix Weir. Now, we'd like to kind of go into this a bit because obviously we've all been seeing the rise in silver and gold, and we've seen the new demand, and it's extremely interesting. And in these tough economic times, it's great insurance. So, John, can you go into this a bit?
Yeah, I'm going to go through the main points that he made because he made some very good pointers here on why he believes silver will hit certain points and so on. So we're just going to read through the main points here, and then we're going to talk a little bit about why silver is so important at the end. Point number one is the removal of gigantic concentrated short positions on the COMEX silver market, as reported in the CFTC commitment of traders and bank participation reports. He believes just by those short positions, which is derivatives by banks, silver is going to increase to $120 an ounce just by that, because he's calculating for the leverage that is in that position versus how they actually price silver versus like the actual real price of silver versus what it should be. And we'll go into some points later on, but let me continue here. Number two is the announcement of charges filed by both the CFTC and FBI in the investigations of silver market manipulation as forced at the end of the LBMA silver fix. So we actually talked about this, Josh, the silver fix that Deutsche Bank and others were committing frauds. And just by doing this, he actually predicts the price to be $360 an ounce. Now, we're not at the point where some of our experts have told us $600-700 yet, but we're going to get there quite quickly, actually. Now, let's continue here. So, the shutdown of the iShares Silver ETF, the SLV, which is the paper position of silver, and the subsequent attempt by SLV investors to transfer into physical silver in their own position. So that's when people take out silver from their try to get the physical possession of the metal, which they thought they had in the contract when they bought the SLV. That they had the possibility to make it into physical metal at one time, but they didn't want to own it because that's what the SLV did. Now, if that happens on top of this, then you end up with a silver price of $720. So now we're starting to really rise in silver price there. Now he says it's not going to even stop there. He has a whole bunch of more points there, and the number 4 point is the implementation of COMEX position limits in silver of no more than 5,000 contracts, and the enforcement of disruptive trading practices law. So basically there's limitations on these massive banks that JP Morgan and others that have shorted had massive positions in silver and really have been manipulating the markets heavily. Now if that gets removed on top of this, now he's talking about 792, but that's kind of coherent with the SLV going bankrupt basically. And then we're going to go into more here. Number 5, the winding down of the outrageous and manipulative silver derivative positions held by JP Morgan, Citibank, as reported by the U.S. Office of the Comptroller of Currencies. Now, the position is about $7.5 billion, and the thing is, this is a highly leveraged product again. You could just see, now there's more and more leverage. This guy has done his homework, actually. I'm very impressed.
And by the way, Bix Weir, if you're watching this, send us a message, worldalternativemedia@gmail.com.
We would love to talk to you.
We'll definitely want to talk to you.
So by doing this, he predicts a 950 ounce price of the silver. Now, it doesn't stop here, guys. Number 6, the mass redemption of paper silver currently held in pooled silver accounts and silver certificate programs into physical silver held in the possession of the owner. So now all these paper, like this is just paper still, we're talking about all these paper. There's a lot more. This guy has looked into all these different paper derivatives. We haven't even talked about all this, but now I kind of see what kind of derivatives they are. And by doing this now, when people move into physical metal and they want the physical metal, you're going to just have a rapid rise. He believes that the silver at that time will be at $1,425 an ounce. And we're just getting started, actually. This is just the start of it. So then he also are talking about the silver to gold price ratio reflects the true physical relationship between the above ground gold and the above ground silver is available for sale on a free and open market. Now when that happens, he still believes that this will just keep the price at the 1,425, but he has a couple of, actually not a couple, he has a bunch of more scenarios here. Number 8, he says the realization of industrial users of silver that supply of physical silver is rapidly depleting, with the future of producing their products in jeopardy. They begin to stockpiling silver. So all these producers, because some experts have said that we were starting to deplete our silver reserves on Earth, actually. And when this happens, he believes that they're going to hit at $2,138 an ounce for silver. Number 9, the reversal of silver ever increasing use in industrial applications due to either high prices of the discovery or of a viable substitute with similar physical properties and attributes. So he believes that the depletion of silver, they're gonna have to start looking for the solar industry and other industries that uses a lot of silver in their industry. They actually are gonna start running out of this silver now. By that happening, he believed that we're looking at a $2,352 an ounce silver. Number 10. It's just going ahead of this. Is a very interesting report.
Absolutely.
The realization by the remaining 99.9% of the investing public that does not currently own any physical that silver is extremely undervalued and should be held by investors interested in portfolio safety and value appreciation. Well, we've been talking about that all the time, Josh, how important it is to hold a physical metal. And he says when people are starting to understand this on top of everything else, he believes that that's going to cost you maybe a $4,704 an ounce price of silver. Now we're starting to talk, we're getting right up there with gold soon, and the gold predictions. Like we're still, our good mentor, James Rickards, when it comes to understanding gold, he talks about $40 to $50 an ounce, $1,000 an ounce silver. Now we're going to go into further why this guy believes, and we're getting to the 100,000. It's just a whole bunch of different scenarios, which is great. This guy's gone into a great deal of understanding the market. So number 11, acknowledgement by the bullion banks and the U.S. government that they have been involved in the price suppression of silver for over 50 years in order to support and extend the global confidence in unbacked fiat dollars. So basically the crash of the fiat currency dollar, he believed that's gonna crash. And he actually comes up with something here when he's looking at a gold and silver standard, I guess he's talking about here. He says 1 ounce silver / gold backed currency equals $1. And at the price there, he believes that silver will rise to $9,408 an ounce. It's not stopping here, guys. We're going to get forward here. And this guy has a lot of interesting... there's a lot more detail to all of his... info here, but we're gonna just talk a little bit about it at the end. Now, number 12, all the silver statistical reporting company have completely revised their historical numbers to reflect the true supply and demand realities of the past and admit to the massive annual physical silver deficit going forward. Now, he believes that this is gonna cause the silver to go to $18,800 an ounce in value. And number 13, The USGS alert the world that the reality that the real current silver consumption rates, there is less than 10 years known below ground silver reserves remaining in the world. And I remember reading this book by Mike Maloney, and he talked about this actually, how silver is depleting very fast, and 95% of the silver, I believe, he said at the time in 2005, was actually depreciated, and there's only 5% below ground silver left mined of what has been taken out.
Wow.
Now he says that when this happens, that the world actually sees this and understands this, silver would jump to $37,632 an ounce. I remember reading that book back at that time, and it just kind of caught my attention, but I never really thought about it ever again. It actually is coming up to me right now as we do in this video. Yeah. And maybe this is what it is now. Like we're starting to hit the end of the silver consumption era, and we depleted this metal unless we find an asteroid and can harvest it, or another planet where we can go and find something.
Yeah, we better get searching.
Yeah, we're running out of luck here. Now, 14, the realization by investors that significant increases in the price of silver not curtail industry demand, as silver is mostly used in very small amounts in each product produced. Now, he believes when this is going to happen, he's looking at a $56,448 an ounce. And he continues, number 15, the mainstream media highlights that the investment drivers for silver far outweighs the investment drivers for gold. This is very interesting reading this. Now, he predicts that when mainstream media is going to get involved at some sorts, people are just going to flood to silver like crazy all over the world.
Well, the media controls the mind, right?
Yeah, and now we're looking at $112,000, $896 an ounce. And he has, like, we make sure to share with you guys all of his detailed analysis of why he believed that he came to these numbers.
Absolutely.
Because it's a lot of very interesting analysis there. Now, number 16, the U.S. Mint starts to produce U.S. silver eagle coins in quantities sufficient to meet demand, and no longer illegally rations their dwindling supply. So they're just, print to, be able to make money on this in desperacy.
Yeah.
Because probably at the time, the fiat dollar is just collapsing like crazy. Now, he's looking at $124.186 an ounce. Now, number 17. When investors stop saying that silver is too hard to store and worrying about that silver is too valuable to leave in the bank safety deposit box. Like, this is insane valuation, sir. But what he says, suddenly, from his analysis, he's looking at a price of $136,604 an ounce. 18. We got 20 points there. So we're almost getting there, but this is crazy. We're looking at when central banks, bankers around the world stop printing money every time there is a bump in the road on their never-ending quest to foster perpetual growth and extraordinary transfers of wealth from many to the few. Now, price analysis, when we get to that point, infinity in unbacked fiat dollar terms. So basically, you can't get any dollars now for your silver. Like, nobody is willing to take dollars for your silver. So it's basically predicting the collapse of silver in just complete. But he believes that one silver equals in gold-backed currency $500. So there's still a lot of value there. So now he believes that it raised in value so crazy because gold was expensive, and now silver is getting extremely just overvalued like crazy. But now he believes that we're getting that backing of currencies, and now suddenly we're just back to the relationship actually where gold and silver is money again.
Yeah.
The United States government and the citizens of the United States recognize and acknowledge that Article 1, Section 10 of the U.S. Constitution specifically specifies that only gold and silver coin can be legal money used, and the Coinage Act of 1792 defined the U.S. dollar as 371 grains and 4/16 parts of a grain of pure, or 416 grain of standard silver. So he's basically talking about people going back to the 1792 Coinage Act, which talks about, how much gold and silver was worth. And then number 20, when he's looking at the final case of silver, when, silver took over the monetary system again. The price of silver has risen so high that it will have fulfilled all the hopes and aspirations as an investor, and I now sit back and enjoy those other pleasures of life that I had put off in pursuit of freeing the silver market from the clutches of manipulation.
Yeah.
So this is the end of very interesting, and actually I can't say I disagree a lot with what he's talking about here. When it comes to this, the silver manipulation, because it's massively manipulated. Now, silver has been a monetary metal for ages, for hundreds of years.
And before we get into that, we've spoken with people like Stephen P. Kendall about this in the past, back in, I think, February, where he was talking about insane prices for the per ounce of gold and per ounce of silver. And he was also talking about the possibility of a corrective market since 2012 in both markets, and that it's actually been going up in value consistently in that time, but it's been suppressed. So what do you think about that, and what do you think about the use of silver, gold, platinum, precious metals against fiat? I know we've talked about this a lot, but it's always the first video for a lot of people that are watching, so it'd be good to go into that.
Well, when it comes to the precious metals, they're precious for a reason, and they've been used for money as a reason, because they were very they were tangible. Of course, you can hold them, but the thing is, some of them actually kept their they didn't corrode, they didn't deplete or get destroyed over time. Like gold, for example, just stays gold in an infinite. It doesn't corrode. It's one of the most fantastic metals that exists when it comes to the quality of what it's doing by not corroding. And that's probably the main reason why gold stayed money. And then, of course, silver, people are looking at gold. Well, yeah, there's a certain amount of gold, but we need probably some more. And silver came in that second place because it's a fantastic metal as well. Of course, it does corrode a little bit, but it still actually is very resistant, and it takes a while for it to actually lose.
And the central banks and the governments over history actually have been very biased against gold and silver. It's not that they don't think it's good, it's that they don't want people to have it a lot of the time.
Oh,
and we've seen that throughout history many times. And what it kind of blows me away is, of course, Canada just sold off basically all of its gold. There's still a lot of naysayers out there. They say that silver and gold aren't going to be worth anything, even though they don't look at history, where throughout time it's always retained its preserved value, and it's always fluctuate. Yeah, I know silver fluctuates a lot. Silver worries a lot of investors because of how much it has fluctuated over time. And like, for example, there have been times where it's gone from it's very little to about $30, even $40 an ounce, and goes back down to $13 an ounce, and that freaks a lot of people out. But when it comes to the end of an economic period where we see the dollar basically crashing, it's devalued by its very being, and it creates debt, perpetual debt. We pay interest on the debt, and we see massive inflation, and we see this happening globally because this, of course, is a global issue. It's silver and gold that always throughout history stand to be that which saves people, keeps them insured. This isn't about this isn't about investing. This is about insuring, and paper money always reverts to its natural value of zero, always.
Yeah, and one thing he didn't actually talk about here is in his report, he might have touched about it in the details, but when it comes to silver, you got to remember there's very few silver mines actually out there. There's mostly silver comes as a secondary metal out of zinc, especially zinc mines and others. And
Absolutely.
now that commodity prices has been extremely low because we're in a depression globally, and people are buying less and less of commodities, so we're using less and less of it. There's been way less silver that have been mined and melted out of that because of it. So, and then on top of it, as we were getting into here, there's a historical scale been mined 95% plus, and now that was back in 2005, and then we can only imagine where we're at now when it comes to silver. So, I don't know, like physically, but the when it comes to geological surveys and everything that's been done, and they don't want to tell us about this, they do believe that it might be less than 5 to 3% right now of the world's silver that exists right now in the ground. Yeah. And that's what he says when silver could just go crazy on top of this whole fiat currency collapse.
Yeah, and I mean, we've had so many different differentiations between different experts that we've spoken to. We've had many people go as far as to say, $27,000 an ounce to $5,000 an ounce to. There's so many different values that people will give it for the future price, but we know that it's going to be going up. I mean, we've seen record highs over the last few months.
One thing when it comes to gold and silver, guys, it's a very simple math. For example, with a gold standard, when it comes to gold standard, you just take the monetary supply that you have. I would say M1, for example, because that's just cash and coinage plus deposits in the bank. Now, when you do that M1, and what you do basically is you take the nation's gold holdings and you find out how many ounces it is.
Yeah.
And you take just a number, X amount of billions, and you just divide it. Yeah. And it's just a very simple math in order to figure out that number. So it's not that these guys are some kind of oracles or something. No. They just know a very easy math, and they're
and it's history repeating itself. I mean, this goes back thousands of years, and we're about at the 1,000-year anniversary as well of paper money, and we've seen how that's gone. Hey, it's taken 1,000 years. Let's not take another 1,000 years to figure it out. We don't.
The last 1,000 years, Josh, have been a movement between paper currencies and then precious metals, and it's always gone forth and back. There's been nothing in between. Even the Swedes know that. I always love to make fun of my Swedish
friends. He's a Norwegian, yeah.
But the Swedes, I gotta talk about this because it's just very funny.
Go for it.
And when it comes to the Swedes, they actually didn't have access to gold and silver at the time in the 1600s, but they had lots of copper. So what they did is they had a copper currency. Now, the copper currency is so funny because the copper currency somewhat just $10 worth, which was, decent amount of money, but it wasn't still a lot of money. It actually was 40 pounds of copper slabs that they had, and they had massive issues with this when it comes to tax collection. So that's actually how they got into using the paper money in Sweden. They were the first ones in Europe almost that got into using
Swedes.
it. Yeah, you guys, you actually stole the idea. Of course, Marco Polo was probably one of the first ones to document the fiat currencies in China, but
give out IOUs, keep giving out more than you have of actual gold or whatever you're basing it on. And of course, today we see it based on absolutely nothing, and except for just the faith.
Yeah. It all comes down to things of value, Josh. Everything around us has value. And when, of course, we as humans, we extract stuff out of the earth, and when we extract it too much, it just becomes basically invaluable at one point. And silver is believed right now to are starting to enter that point in history where there's very little left for us to be able to take up.
So basically, all those people that sold off all of their, silver spoons and silver cups and trays and stuff that they had passed down by their grandparents, the usual keepsakes that they sold off to an antique shop, you're going to be hurting a little bit in a few years when you see the price of silver. And I mean, there, like I said, there's variations of when this is going to happen, but we've already seen it start. And we've seen, I think that we're going to be seeing a massive rise by the year 2020, and I think that
probably before that even.
Well, absolutely, but I don't want to leave it too close because people will come back to this video in 4 years and say, "Hey,
we can't set a date on it."
Yeah, we can't set a date, but we know it's coming, and that's the most important part. And I think it would be so amazing if all these people, if so many poor people out there, they went and bought an ounce of silver or a couple ounces of silver
just
for
get some precious
$15
metals
each.
to protect a little bit of your wealth, and you would not be left in the dust, because if you just get caught holding your fiat dollars or any fiat currency, you're gonna lose.
Yeah, well, what are you going to do when fiat currency collapses? I mean, when silver collapses, if it ever it does do that, then eventually it's going to bounce back up because it has physical value. Paper, what are you going to do with that? Is it going to mold away, or are you going to sweep it into a gutter? Because you're not going to be able to use it in the future.
Or you're going to burn it.
Yeah, that currency is de facto, and then you bring upon a new currency. And of course, I say currency because, silver and gold, That's money. That is actual money. And I'm not talking about basing paper IOUs on gold and silver. I'm talking about physical silver and gold. The same way as someone in, the year 1915 could be paid a silver coin an hour, and it's equivalent now to like $15, $16 an hour. Now that's preserved value. That goes to show how a metal like silver or gold, can preserve over history and prove to be that consistent and that worthy of investment and most of all insurance.
Yeah, there's a quality to it again. It doesn't corrode. Like I have old Roman coins from 2,000 years ago, and they're still actually they haven't deteriorated very much. Even the silver, the gold, of course, is almost perfect quality, but the silver is it's there.
And there's so much good that can come out of the silver and the gold market. And I think that we have to get on this more and more in the future because we've been talking about it for a while. So much of what we said is coming true. And here we are, and more people are catching on to it, and more people are writing their articles about it, and it's such an amazing thing to watch. I mean, there are certain kind of predictions that I don't want to be right about, but we end up being right about it anyway, and that is the unfortunate vindication. But with silver and gold, we're right about it, we keep being right about it, and it keeps rising in value, and people are going to be so much more prosperous if they put their minds together and do something involving silver and gold, buy your silver and gold, and don't use it as an investment, use it as insurance, and it's a way for you and your family to keep safe in the event of the inevitable economic collapse, which, like I said, it is inevitable, it is going to happen, and it's best that you keep yourself and your family safe. That's all we're about here. So please send in your messages, send in your questions, send in your angry messages too. Like I always say here at WHAM, it's always worth a good laugh. We need to laugh in life. So thank you, John. And Bix Weir, if you've seen this video, please
contact us.
Yeah. We appreciate the article. It was very entertaining, very informative, and a great example of the way that this is kind of a revolution. The world is changing around us, and you know what? Sometimes it's not always for the bad. Sometimes it's for the good, and that's a great example.
Let's bet on the good.
Let's bet on the good, absolutely. So this is Josh Sigurdson, John Sneisen, signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth. Be the change.
Thank you.